Who was here first? Oh, it was my daughter. Excuse me, but how you doing, kid? Scott Adams. Is he a brilliant strategist, strategery, or stupid racist? Well, I found this video on Hotep Jesus' channel. I don't know anything about this guy here, but he explains himself in this video, and I've listened to some of it, not all of it. I'm not sure how much we're going to listen to this, but here's my take. Actually, I'm going to play this first, in case you haven't seen this. See, I'm leaning towards, and I'm not committed to this yet, but I'm leaning towards this guy's brilliant. This Dilbert guy is brilliant because he's gotten a knee-jerk reaction at people, and he wanted to do that for a reason, and we're going to figure out what that reason is exactly. Plus, he's using the what's it called? The backfire effect to his benefit. I'll explain that later. He's using reverse psychology. I'll explain that later. He is a puppeteer pulling on the strings of some of you people out there, and you're letting him do it. And it's amazing how effective he is at it. I'm serious here. I'm leaning towards he is for I think good reasons. He is manipulating people, and I'm going to play this video here where he makes the comment about stay away from black people. But this is what you hear from many, many people, people of color, saying. Like, imagine this. Imagine he would have said the opposite. And for those of you who don't know what's going on, if you're from South Dakota or if you're from Kansas, you could leave now. But go back to your. It's almost fall. Go back to your planning of the seeding of this coming farming year. But imagine if he would have said the opposite. My advice to white people is to move into black neighborhoods. I mean, white people, go into black neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods. Can you imagine? People wouldn't like that. A white man saying to other white people, go into black neighborhoods and housing prices are going to go up. Is this like gentrification? Or imagine he said, white people, go into black safe spaces. No, he said the opposite. He said, white people, stay away from black people. And people got mad. If he would said the opposite, people get mad. It's a no-win situation, right? And another thing, if you think for 1 second he cares about being canceled, you'd be wrong. You don't think he's thought these things through? You don't think he's a multi-millionaire and he has what's called FU money? I mean, if you think this is causing him to lose sleep, no. But anyhow, here's what I was getting at.
You have a token white and you're hanging out with your friend group of color. You need to ask permission from everybody in the group to bring your white friend. Like, don't just bring them. I might not be in the mood to deal with white shenanigans that day. That's all I'm saying. And another thing, it feeds into their ego. Like, don't let them think they're a good white.
Okay, now, for those of you wondering, these are just what I would call stupid young people on TikTok. But there's a lot of them like this. Okay, here's the Dilbert creator.
But as of today, I'm going to re-identify as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group. I'd accidentally joined a hate group. So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them.
Accomplices ask, how can they support black and indigenous people of color? And sometimes I really don't know what to say, but here's one easy way. Just don't have babies.
Women can single-handedly cause the white genocide that they are so afraid of. With 2.25 billion Asian women and 500 million white men, baby, it'll only take 2 generations.
So here we have a couple examples of assuming these people are genuine, calling for or thinking about genocide of white people, either through reproduction.
The best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the away. Wherever you have to go, just get away. Because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population.
We are inherently a danger in spaces for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color simply by existing.
It's white cis men who are a part of the far right-winged ideology of fascism. That is a true threat.
Yeah, true threat. White people are, especially white cis males, are a true threat. Now, if you think these people don't exist and they're just like a small, tiny fraction of a percentage, I think you'd be wrong. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but just on YouTube watching people, on TikTok watching people, there's a lot of crazy people out there who think like this. So what did, when I first heard this, I consider myself a fairly intelligent guy. I kind of laughed and said, okay, what's going on here? Whereas other people, they hear something like that and they go, racist. I mean, that's their knee-jerk reaction because they've been conditioned. They got strings attached to their mind and they are manipulated by whatever they hear and they don't think. And then I found this interview with where we can hear what he actually thinks and what the purpose behind all this. Okay, let's get for posterity. Welcome if you're new here. This is for the strong people. If you're weak, you might not be able to handle this channel. Okay, so 7327. You know what we're going to do? We're going to play this. I don't know how many people have seen this. But how many? We only got 22 votes. Come on, everybody vote quickly. How many people are here? There's 50 people here. We only got 20, only half of you voted. And there'll be more people coming later, but I want to get at least over 30, okay? So if you haven't voted, you don't have to be committed to it. Just remember I said lean. I've already kind of biased you. But don't let me pull your strings. Let's get up to 30. But right now we're probably, I'll just write down 2773. If it changes a little bit, I'll change it. Then at the end of this, we're going to take the same vote and see if anybody's minds were changed by actually hearing this guy talk. Well, it's already changing. It's already going. People are foreseeing how I'm setting you up in a trap, and they're voting accordingly now. Maybe not. Maybe you'll watch this and say, no, he's even more stupid than I thought. Okay, let's start from the beginning. I'm not going to play all this because it's an hour and a half or so, but there's some interesting parts, and I got some timestamps.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. That Hotep Jesus dude. Hold on.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
We don't
First
need
of
that.
all, for all of our sippers, we're going to start this cast off with a simultaneous sip.
Oh, I guess I should do it too.
Absolutely wonderful. Real quick, let me
Sorry.
pay the bills. HotepCon tickets on sale right now. HotepNation.com. It's our annual event for Hotep Nation. Go there.
Water.
Shout out to my sponsors, Syscoin, the best of Bitcoin, the best of Ethereum. You want to be in that ecosystem. Amazing project, happy topic with none other than Scott Adams. You're starting doing great.
Oh, I forgot I'm supposed to be feeling bad about all this. One of the things I've realized about myself, I like attention. I just kind of like it. But I'm also kind of an energy monster. So the more energy they send me, the more I have. So we'll see what happens with that.
Why?
So he likes this. He likes being canceled.
You've turned into more than an energy monster. This is an energy demon. based upon what I've seen on my timeline. But before we get into that, I want to ask you something. This is my own personal question. A lot of the other questions are from reading the room, seeing what people are saying. But what I want to know is the identifying as Black. When did that come about? Because that took me off. I was caught off guard with that. When did that happen? How did that come about? Why'd you make that decision?
So I'm trying to remember when it was, but several years ago, I said I'm going to identify as Black. Now, part of the reason was that I could. It was just an option, right? So I thought, well, that sounds good. But then I thought I could get the best of both worlds. If there's anything ever that's like,
I wonder if anybody has a problem with that. Like, do people of color have a problem with him identifying as Black? It's his choice, right?
Rationed by race, I can say, well, I identify as Black. And if people wanted to treat me as white because they like that, they'd look at me and say, well, I think he looks white. So I thought I could get the best of both worlds sort of mix. But the less funny, the less...
Because I'm a pattern-seeking male, and mammal, I should say. I'm a pattern-seeking mammal. I look at him and I see white. I don't know what you guys see.
Funny answer is that I was spending tons of time working on things that were directly for the benefit of the Black community. So a lot of the things I was advocating for. So for example, a lot of people don't know that I'm left-wing. And a lot of your audience is going to be confused because the headlines are saying I'm a right-wing MAGA guy.
Yeah.
I'm actually endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy for president, primarily because I'm a single-issue voter on fentanyl.
Are all left-wing people like this guy?
Pretty tough on fentanyl. But what people don't know is I'm super left-wing. I volunteered to work for Black Lives Matter, helped Hawk Newsom try to craft some useful policies that the right and the left would agree on. Stuff like body cams. I thought, wow, there's this problem of police brutality. What if more police had body cams? So I tried to work with Black Lives Matter to see if we could get something going. Now, it didn't take long to find out that Black Lives Matter was a sort of a not legitimate organization.
Yeah, I did a little research on them too and figured that out. I didn't look at anything that other people had said or whatever. I actually went into the tax return filings and right away, oh no.
So long before the headlines verified it, my brief encounter, it was clear that they were not focused on any kind of solutions. I'm not sure if everybody knows that, but that's pretty well established. When Colin Kaepernick was doing his kneeling, I'm probably the only person I know who supported it who wasn't Black, because I thought it was a really effective sort of get in your face kind of protest.
I supported his right to kneel.
And I was confused why people didn't understand that the offensiveness of it was why it works. That's like the whole point. So to me, that looked brilliant. And I also offered to see if I could help on the issue. Now, I didn't get any traction on that.
Yes, Blasticful, this is a response to a poll, whether it's okay to be white. And he talks about the poll coming up. So before you get your gitch in a waddle and all tightened up, don't worry, it's coming up.
The things that I work on the most, I'm actually investing in right now, is a curriculum for homeschoolers that would teach strategy for success.
How can someone lean left and work on curriculum for homeschoolers? Mind blown. I'm starting to like this guy.
Now, the strategy for success is what I'm getting in trouble for. We'll talk about that. But it's primarily for Black youths who didn't have...
What? Homeschooling curriculum for Black youths? Mind blown.
Largely because of systemic racism. I think this is one of the most valid parts of systemic racism is the lack of, let's say, role models of exactly the financial type that you want, specifically financial. And I thought, well, if I could be part of that solution, the book, one of the books behind me, tells young people how to succeed and create a strategy. And so I worked on that. I'm trying to finish that up to make that available. I've been promoting the end of systemic racism in teachers' unions, because I think the teachers' unions are what prevent competition for schools, and the lack of competition creates everything bad.
Someone who leans left, who loves competition? Maybe I'm really left wing too.
Right, everything good comes from competition in the free market. Everything bad comes from the opposite. History says. I was big on prison reform, very much in favor of the Jared Kushner efforts there. And I've even argued in writing for reparations, because I thought the arguments for reparations were weak. And I thought it would be useful to say, what's the strongest argument for reparations? So we'd have a valid discussion. So that's sort of the background. So doing all of that work on behalf of one community primarily, I thought, well, I like being on the winning team, and I like the issues. I think that they're the ones that have the most leverage in society. Because I think if you help the people, this is the basic thinking. If you can help somebody go from unemployed to employed, that's the biggest change you can make. If you give somebody a 20% raise, it's like, well, nice. But going from unemployed, where we paid for you to live, to where you pay for yourself to live, that's everything. So if you're looking at the well-being of the country, it makes sense to focus on the people who are in the deepest hole, and it's sort of a twofer, because you could, maybe heal racial tensions by being serious about Black Lives Matter. Like, why not take it seriously?
To me, so far, this sounds like a man who actually wants to have practical solutions for real problems in society.
And invest in the thing that would make a difference. Now, my personal opinion is that systemic racism is the reason that it's hard for people to get along. And this is sort of the underpinning of what we'll probably talk about in a minute. But the biggest form of systemic racism is that the school systems are a complete failure for Black Americans, but anybody who's poor in inner cities and Black places. So it's not entirely a Black thing. But to me, that's the biggest issue maybe in the country, the poor quality of the school system, specifically for the underserved community. So that's been my focus for years, and I put my money and my time behind it.
Okay, if you don't mind, I want to unpack a few things you said there. First of all, I want to come back to how you figured out Black BLM was, not legitimate, but I do want to say that Hotep Nation, our focus is homeschooling. We're a nonprofit organization, tax exempt. I homeschool my kids, and
I homeschooled my kids as an atheist for many years, up to grade 6, and then they went into junior high, which was I think, in hindsight, good decision for my son, bad decision for my daughter. But I think that really helped them in high school, being homeschooled till grade 6. I mean, they don't have the problems especially my daughter, she didn't have the problems a lot of teenage girls have.
I'd love to work with you on that regard, right? That topic. So
I'd love to.
Let's put that aside really for a second. BLM, you said, was not legitimate. I said this 2015 and prior. How did you realize that?
I realized because
if you came late, please rewind, set it at 2x, and then catch up, because I think there's a lot of important things if you just got here.
Any effort to put on paper, like, here are some ideas, like in a real useful way, got the kind of resistance that you wouldn't expect from anybody trying to solve a problem. Now, I don't want to, out of respect, I would rather not talk about a private conversation.
Right.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But let's just say privately, I learned that it was a money grift.
Yeah.
So, it's not my opinion. That's what I learned.
Okay, so he worked. I think he said earlier he worked for BLM or associated with them in some way. He came to the same conclusion I came to, looking at the tax return.
Real quick, that's how Thomas Sowell became a capitalist. He tried to, he got a job in the labor department, wanted to fix minimum wage, and realized pretty much the same thing that you had. Now, you said in reparations, you ran into some weak arguments for reparations. What were the weaker arguments, and what did you think were the stronger arguments for reparations?
Well, I think the argument...
Yeah, with reparations, the strong argument against it is it's highly impracticable. Am I saying that word right? You know how you get these brain farts?
That's doomed to fail, or it might make things worse if it succeeded, is we're going to transfer money from people who don't think they owe it to people who think you do. Like, any situation like that's just, you want to avoid.
Yeah.
So I thought that there would be a clever way that both conservatives and the left and the Black community would all say, okay, we weren't thinking of it that way, but that could work. And it goes like this. Especially the Republicans, if they could work with the Black community to focus on education, whatever that takes, some say homeschool, some say funding schools, it's probably all of that, plus teachers unions. But if they could concentrate on that one thing, And just make this agreement. We're going to save the next generation of black kids, but we're going to save everybody who's in that situation at the same time. But we're going to do it because it's right, for reparations, et cetera. If you do it that way, then the black people who would be benefiting, at least the next generation, because it wouldn't be so useful for the current people, but the people who are part of that would be part of something pretty great. So something I think is important as the civil rights movement. Now, the civil rights movement didn't work because only black people were protesting, right? It required a lot of white friends. So this is the perfect situation. But if we focus on how do you transfer money, I feel as if all those committees that are being formed, to study it, that's how white people make a problem go away. I hate to tell you that's what's going on, but that is nothing but to make the problem go away. Like everybody who has any experience in a organization, a company, if you want to make it go away, just say you got to study it, form a group, right? That'll make it go away.
Yes.
And you could guarantee that they would come up with something so unpopular with the public that it couldn't possibly work. So, the committee is really it's a fake out.
You are right, Guy Montag. Charter schools get to pick their students. Public schools don't. You are correct. My wife works for a charter school, and there's a long wait list. At least there used to be a long wait list of people wanting to get in because they don't want their kids going into a school system, I guess, full of riffraff, problem kids. Do you really want your kid going to a school where there's a chance they might be knifed, punched in the face for no reason, teachers abused?
Really focus on education. You could say, let's call it reparations. We'll put more money into it than we ever would have done if it was just about education. Yeah. Let's make it like the one thing we can agree on, save the next generation.
Yeah. I have to agree on the education tip. I look at reparations from a very selfish perspective. In long-term perspective, I don't want money. I want tax exemption for a really long time. That's what I would personally ask for, is tax exemption.
Yeah, the Native Americans in the United States, well, at least I know in Canada, well, I'm sure it's here in the U.S. too, as long as they are working or staying on the reservation, living on the reservation, I think they're also tax exempt, right? That's the way it is in Canada. Can someone confirm that's the way it is here in the U.S., that Native Americans are already tax exempt?
In a form of reparations?
From tax exemptions from income tax?
All tax. Corporate tax and income tax. If I own a company and I'm the majority owner of that company, I want corporate tax removed as well.
Now if you're a left-leaning person, what do you do with that? Do you say, because you like taxation, right, of corporations, but yet it's a black corporation, so no, well, maybe we shouldn't tax black corporations. It's a conundrum.
Do you think that that's like a form of an idea that you could get enough agreement on?
Yes.
You do?
Well, the reason why I think so is because now you're going to have other groups, because let's be honest, everybody hates the IRS. So they're going to go, oh, well, maybe there's a way I can get myself exempt. Maybe Irish or the Italians can say, well, we want reparations too. And
the Mennonites.
And Irish and a whole bunch of other people saying, well, look, I got an ancestor who came over in Ellis Island or something, and I can get white people on board.
If your plan depends on the Irish getting reparations, I see a problem.
Do you?
I don't think the reparation thing is going to extend too far out of maybe Native Americans and Black Americans. But I like your optimism. Maybe we'll all get reparations. Lower the tax.
So, how do you think reparations looks? You mentioned education. Are we talking about transferring funds to some group who then manages homeschooling and then designing a good curriculum around that?
I think job one is breaking the teachers' unions. I think that's the number one thing that Black America needs. Okay. And it's one thing that you could get conservatives to sign on to. Now, you could also test it. You could also say,
yeah, this is so dangerous for people who lean left, who are white, to listen to, because I do think African Americans, at least, I think there's polling data on this, and I could be wrong, but that they are for school choice. They are, I think, more for breaking student unions, teacher unions. And in a lot of ways, Black America is aligned with conservatives on this.
We don't know if this is the best idea. Let's Let's just agree that we'll test it in this area, get some more free market stuff, see what happens.
I like that. I like that. We're going to address your statement next, but first I want to say this is pay to play, people. So if you want to participate in this conversation respectfully, go ahead, hit the super chat. We got people tuned in over on Rumble. We're Hotep TV on Rumble. So if you want to subscribe on Rumble.
No, I'm not feeling sorry for Scott Adams. I'm trying to figure out if he's brilliant or if he's stupid. Or somewhere in between, I guess.
You began this conversation and called yourself an energy monster. Now, when I first saw your statement, I classified it as trolling. Some people may call it clout chasing. Maybe you're classifying this as being an energy monster or provocateur. What is the goal of your statement? Was it to get people energetically charged up?
Well, is that what you call trolling? Getting
Sometimes
people just riled up?
It can be construed as that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little secret about me. I never do something for one reason. So I wouldn't do it just for laughs.
Right.
I wouldn't do it just for clout.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly wouldn't do it for financial reasons. I don't know if you've heard, but the Dilbert's being canceled all over the country, and it's CNN is canceling me. I think TMZ was canceling me just before I got on. I think the biggest newspaper that carries me has already decided to cancel. I would be surprised if I'm in business a few days from now. So here's the things you can know it isn't. I wouldn't do it just for laughs. I mean, it isn't that funny. It's pretty funny, but it isn't that funny.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do it for money. I wouldn't do it for reputation. Why would I do it?
Yes. Why is the question? Why would you say white people get away from black people? Why would you say black people are, at least close to half of them, in a hate group? Why did you say that?
Well, that's a question. Why would I do it?
I think you want to have the conversation.
Can you think of any other reason I would do it?
I think you wanted to have. I think you wanted to create room for the conversation.
I discovered that the price of free speech is really high, and there are only a few people willing to pay it. So I decided to pay it so that I could extend the conversation to something that everybody needs to hear. So let me set it up. You might want to play the quote first. Do you want to play the clip first or something to set it up?
Sure. Let me.
No. So the clip will be provocative, and then I'll give you the context. Now, I should say, while we're waiting to listen to this, that all day long people were very mad at me. That's why the cancellations. But
yeah, Charles B says because he got angry and let his ignorance get the better of him. Charles B, does he seem like the type of person, I don't know when you got here, that doesn't think things through? Do you think anything he said, Charles B, and the reaction he got was a surprise to him? Do you think he did it out of anger and emotion, or was it calculated? And I know for some people it's hard to wrap their brain around how can someone say such things and do it on purpose as a calculation? Well, you're about to find out, I think.
To the best of my knowledge, nobody's disagreed with the point I made. And I keep asking if they disagree with the point, and they sort of avoid that question. There is some question about the data.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. It's one of those things that I've been charged with too, is I will say something, be called a racist, but yet they don't disagree with what I say. It's just you shouldn't say it.
Which I agree with. The questionableness of the data. I think that's a good point.
Yes, we could talk about the data. Absolutely. I'm trying to find the right clip because a lot of them are long and they're mostly like 2 minutes.
Yeah, he's finding the clip here. But if you think he slipped up and this was a slip of the tongue, you, I think, are very, very wrong. He meant to say every word that he said for a reason, and we're going to find out. He's already kind of said.
See me and Scott now on your screen, and then you'll see the video right now, and then I'll release the audio, and then we'll be playing this. Hold on one second.
So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group.
Yeah, and for people who are criticizing the poll or whatever, the poll is not the issue. The poll could be 100% wrong. He could interpret it 100% wrong. The real issue here is what he said because of his either correct or incorrect interpretation of the poll, incorrect or correct poll, and the response to it. That's the real point here.
That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the fuck away. Wherever you have to go, just get away.
Just get away.
Because there's no fixing this.
All right, so I couldn't hear the clip, but
it's still going.
Right, this can't be fixed.
Do you want me to play the whole thing?
Escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood.
Whatever you think.
That's good.
Stop it.
That's good.
Yeah, he goes on to say, I moved into a neighborhood with mostly white people. Do you guys really think he moved? Maybe. I highly doubt it. I think he just said that. And well, he might have moved, but way long before this came about.
So you said, get away.
So here's the context.
Okay.
And this is the sort of thing that, you owe the world, not you, I owe the world a clarification.
Okay.
Clarification is this. I'm opposed to any form of discrimination against individuals. Not your neighbor, not the person applying for a job, marry who you want, date who you want, friends who you want. I have no opinion on that, except everybody should be treated as individuals, period. And from a constitutional legal sense, everybody has to be treated the same, period. So those things I think everybody agrees on.
Yeah.
The second thing I said that was controversial, and I think some of the context got lost, is that if you're not in a constitutional legal sense and you're not talking to an individual, then for career maximization or life maximization, you might want to avoid people you think have a bad opinion of you. I'll give you some examples. If a man said to me, I've got a job offer, 2 places. One of them, it's a lot of men work there and I'm a man. And then another one where it seems like all the executives are women. So I got a suspicion that they wouldn't want to promote a man. So they asked my opinion. What would I say? I say, well, you don't know what all those women think. And certainly you shouldn't judge all of the women at this company by that pattern. But if your intuition is that they might not favor you as much as this other company, I would go where the discrimination worked in my favor.
Yeah. Now that might sound a little harsh, but I think we all tend to operate in that manner. Think of it, if you're a woman and you have 2 jobs, it seems like all else is equal. The only difference is one has all the board members are men, all the board members are women. Woman, which job are you going to take? You're going to take the job where the discrimination's in your favor, yes?
Here's another example. If a young black person came to me and said, give me some life advice, I would say, don't go where you have the lowest risk, the lowest chance of succeeding. Go where you have the best chance. The best chance at the moment is you stay in school and try to get a job at a big Fortune 500 company that's trying to balance out their diversity. A very good goal. But that would put you at the top of the list, and you would automatically be, above all the white people applying for the same job if you have, similar qualifications. In the real world, people tend to have similar qualifications. I think people imagine that you can really tell who the good employee is going to be. Like, if you've ever hired, you can't do that. Nobody really knows. Like, within a similar band, you just don't know. So you're kind of guessing. Anyway, so that would be an example where a black person should go where they have the biggest career advantage, which is, they would be discriminated in a positive way. If you were...
Yeah, that's another thing for people from Idaho to understand, that discrimination is not a bad word. You can discriminate in the wines you drink, in the restaurants you go to, in the cars you buy. You can discriminate against Volkswagen. You can discriminate for Teslas. Discrimination is not a bad word. I just said, I know most of you understand that, but for people from Idaho, they don't.
A black man and asked me for advice, and you said, should I go work for a company in Cleveland or go somewhere where, not Cleveland, I guess, where there's a higher white percentage? Which would be your competitive advantage? If you go to Cleveland, it's 53% black, the city is. So let's say you work for a company in Cleveland, presumably you would be competing against a lot of other black people with similar qualifications. But if you go to another place where there are fewer black people applying for the same jobs, you go to the top of the white pile automatically, because diversity is something every company wants, and they should. Right? I'm in favor of this. By the way, I'm in favor of, and have always been in favor of, affirmative action. But I think you have to have a conversation at some point about how to phase it out. Because once things get close.
Yeah, I'm against affirmative action because I think it has the unintended consequences of people not trusting. Imagine a doctor. Let's say you have affirmative action in medical schools and you go into a clinic and you got a white doctor and a black doctor and you got to make a choice. Then let's say you're biracial. So, and you got to make a choice. Do you want the white doctor or the black doctor? You get to choose. Well, how do I know the black doctor actually just got in by the skin of his teeth and is a little lacking in the experience and the GPA and all that sort of thing, but they wanted diversity? You know, people think this way, right? It can work against the black person. And ironically, if you made it harder for black people to get into medical school, then even the white racist is going to say, give me the black doctor because I know he's better. Because he needed a higher GPA, more experience to become a doctor. If you think of it that way, it becomes clear. When you lower the standards, lower the bar, people start to get skeptical. Anyhow, that's why I'm against affirmative action, the unintended consequences.
But before everything is exactly equal, you end up having more bad will than positive benefit.
Yeah.
It's like you got to be careful when you get that close. So I think we're in the neighborhood where we should have the conversation about, is it better for everybody to phase it out, or is there some places it's better to keep it? So likewise, if you're a white man in America and you're watching the news and you're seeing this thing called CRT, critical race theory, you're seeing DEI and ESG, all three-letter things that have in common trying to reach some kind of equity, racial balancing kind of situation. Now, I'll ask you this question because maybe you can educate me. My understanding is that they all have at the base of their narrative that white people, mostly white men, have created a situation and continue to perpetuate one that's bad for black people. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
So what would be the most natural way you would feel if the narrative from the media, from college, from high school, your teachers, your parents, if the media was very, let's say, cohesive, and it said white people are the problem, do you think that would affect how black people thought about white people?
Yes.
Would it have any effect?
Yes.
And assuming it's a negative effect, would it be reasonable for somebody to say, wait, there's this group of people, I don't have any problem with any individual, and I don't want to change the Constitution, right? Everybody's got to be treated equally. But it's a little bit smarter for me to stay away from a group who has been brainwashed to dislike me exactly. Like me exactly. I'm a rich white guy in America. I'm very much right in the center of that.
Yeah, this is what I was getting at in the beginning of this show, that when he said, my advice to white people is stay away from black people. Is this what a lot of black people want? He's saying what I'll say some people, we'll even say it's a small minority of people, black people, want. Yes, stay away from us. Give us our space.
Now, does that mean that I think everybody should avoid their neighbor? No. Does that mean I'm never going to talk to a black person? No. Does that mean I won't hire black people? No. Doesn't mean any of that. And also, I assume people know hyperbole when they see it, right? When I say stay away from black people, anybody who thought that was like a literal, like, yeah, all black people, if you see one coming, run. Like, there's a test I like to give for fake news, where you just say the thing that's in the news, and then you follow it with the words, really? Do you think that happened? Do you think that I went on a live stream and said, stay away from black people, every one of them, there's no exceptions, whatever you do, just ask yourself, was there any thinking behind it?
Yeah, he's talking to you, Charles B. He's calling you stupid if you just believed it.
There may be a why to that you haven't heard yet. If you heard it in context, would you disagree with it? And the answer is, I haven't seen anybody disagree. So I have seen disagreement I don't see anybody disagreeing with you should avoid any groups of people who are likely to have negative opinions about you on average. What I saw a lot of disagreement on, and I agree with this criticism, is that the Rasmussen poll that I was looking at, the original thing that started it, said that something like close to half of all Black Americans who were polled were unwilling to say that it's, quote, okay to be white. Now, I heard you criticizing that, and your criticism was right on. The nature of the question is that it will be interpreted differently by people, and maybe they're not even answering the same question as the other people in their minds. So I would agree that the data is not good. But honestly, anybody who's watched me for a while knows that my primary act, at least on social media and live stream, is doubting polls, doubting experts, doubting the science.
Yeah, called it. The real issue wasn't the poll.
Doubting any leadership or government person. Now, there's a 4chan hoax that all of my pandemic...
The real issue was him triggering people and they falling for it. And using it as an opportunity for a bigger, broader discussion for practical solutions, which some of them he's already mentioned.
Opinions are the opposite of what they were. So there's a version of me online that's the opposite of just that. But that's, a 4chan hoax. Anyway, so I forgot what I was saying.
Okay, so let's break that down. I do agree on the separation of people part, right? As a former extreme Black nationalist, I even still today tell Black people, if you want to do better, you could work together and we can pull ourselves out of this problem by group economics, right? Is one thing you'll hear consistently throughout Black nationalist conversations. But I want to come back to the point of your hyperbole. I understood when I first heard it, you saw me crack up. I knew it was hyperbole. I knew what you were doing, but I got to tell you, the optics were dangerous, Scott. The optics of it. And I want to know.
It's dangerous for someone where there's a lot on the line and a lot at stake. You think it's dangerous for him, for Scott Adams? No. He probably wanted to retire anyhow. He's had enough of Dilbert. He probably has, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 million in the bank. Doesn't make a dent to him if people think the worst of him. Like I said, he has FU money.
What you think about this, because you're a huge personality. You have a ton of history behind you, your brand, Dilbert. And what you say, as you can see, affects the fabric of America. It's going to send ripples through the culture. So when you say that, I think in some ways you understand that some people are going to know you're being hyperbolic, but you also know it's going to trigger a lot of people. You don't think what you chose to do was irresponsible?
Oh, there's a good question. Was it irresponsible? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me answer it this way. There was a purpose to it. If you didn't know the purpose to it, it would look that way. So anybody who didn't know why I did it, that would be a reasonable interpretation. Yes. But if you knew why I did it, which is to broaden this conversation, because it's sort of, until you can talk honestly about any of the race stuff, how can you possibly do anything? How can you possibly do anything?
Yeah. So
the minimum is somebody needs to get in trouble by like moving the envelope. So here's what I want to say.
What he's saying is he's a true progressive. He's willing to push the boundaries. He's willing to make people feel bad. He's willing to offend. He's saying he's a true liberal. Oh, I love it.
In which the narrative is that white people are the basis of the problem of not only past discrimination, but perpetuating ongoing systemic racism. There's only one outcome of that, which is white people are going to want to get away from that. So I would broaden the conversation to say it's not about Black people, it's about woke people too. So if you're concerned about the woke taking you down, you want to stay away from woke people.
Yes. He's saying not only should you stay away from Black people, you should stay away from woke people. If you're me, you should avoid Black people, and although my wife's Black, so how do I do that? Oh yeah, separate bedrooms. Exactly. I've already done my part. Oh, This is hilarious.
I'll give you an analogy. Do you remember the Pence rule, Mike Pence? He had a rule that he wouldn't go to lunch or dinner with a woman who is not his wife, unless his wife came along.
Oh, yes.
And people mocked it because it's so backwards.
That is smart. The Mike Pence rule is smart. If you want to avoid entrapment from a woman during a Me Too movement, you don't go out with women. Problem solved.
But as time went by, you realize the wisdom of it. If you don't put yourself in a temptation, you won't get tempted. And then secondly, there was a lot of Me Too business going on. So most of the Me Too's presumably are real, but there's an alarming percentage that are not. So if you're not alone with a woman in the first place, you can't get a false accusation. So we're reaching a point where...
And to think about it, if you're not having coitus and you're just like talking to a woman, like what could a woman possibly say that a man can't? Right? Like it's sexist to think that women can say different words than men.
If you follow the money, it sort of makes sense to make false accusations. It's like it's starting to become a monetary strategy. And you would expect that somebody's going to pick up on that. So, in a world in which people are learning that white people are bad, it doesn't seem crazy that white people would want to avoid the entire environment. Now, but we glossed over the most important question. The most important question is, am I batshit crazy for believing the Rasmussen poll? And I would like to ask your opinion, based on your years of living, what percent of Black Americans do you think have I'll just say a negative opinion of white people? What's your best guess?
So we talked about this on Hotep's Been Told You Thursday. This is our very
okay. We're going to get anecdotal truth here.
Hearted comedy show we do every Thursday, 8 p.m. on Uncle Hotep. And this question is actually bifurcated, okay? Or the answer, I should say, the solution. There's a conscious perception of white people. There's a subconscious perception of white people, okay?
Sure.
The conscious perception sometimes is negative, but the subconscious perspective is very positive. For example, if you ever read the book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, when he was Detroit Red, he talks about how his social equity gained a lot of value when he came around with a white woman. Black people perceived him to be more popular or more valuable than what he was because he was walking around with a white woman. We can also say the same thing about medical advice. Hoteps have said many things about health, but until a white man in a lab suit says it, the general Black population doesn't hop onto it. They need to see, and this is subconscious, this is part of what people might call systemic racism or white supremacy, where everything of authority has to come.
Whoa. You guys hear what he just said? He said that if a Black person, if it's some type of medical diagnosis, a Black person is not going to trust if a Black doctor says it, but if a white doctor says it, okay. And this reminds me of a joke Jamie Foxx told once about going on to a commercial airliner and looking to his left and looking into the cockpit and seeing two Black airline pilots. And Jamie Foxx getting worried. You brothers know what you're doing? He said this as a joke, but this guy is making it sound like it's not a joke. Which gets to a very broad point or scary point, that is the problem white supremacy or is the problem Black inferiority?
Come from a white man's face. So there's that subconscious perception. Then there's also the perception of, well, if Scott Adams could dance and he wore Timberland boots, well, we got to invite him to the cookout. So there's nuance there subconsciously, okay? Where Black people love white people as long as they meet certain requisites. Then there's the conscious. And the conscious is programmed in the subconscious from an early age. I was raised to hate white people, pretty much, from history, et cetera, media, all these things. So to answer your question, I would have to say, I can't say for certain, but I would say the poll is probably closer to the truth.
Whoa.
If we were to say that
the poll is closer to the truth. This is an anecdotal truth here. I hope not. I hope not.
everybody was answering that question from the first person perspective, that roughly the majority of black folks think it's okay to be white. Whereas that other, I think it was maybe 47% or something like that, were unsure or said it's not okay to be white. Did that answer your question?
So pretty close to the Rasmussen number. Like anecdotally, that feels about right.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of input on Twitter, and it varied from a black man saying that personally 1% of the people he knew in his family and in the military, apparently the military does a good job of evening stuff out there. And then somebody else said it's at least 50%. A black man said that. And then other people have avoided the question. But let's say it's 50 or 20%, and you're making your personal decisions. You know, if 20% of the houses in a neighborhood that you were looking to buy a house were known neo-Nazis, would you say to yourself, well, it's only 20%?
Oh, he went there. This reminds me of a thought experiment I did, about a year or two ago? Some of you might remember it. But I asked the thought experiment, black person, would you rather live in a gated community where the majority of the people living there are Nazis, but very low crime rate? Like, these Nazis are not going, the probabilities of you being harmed, there's been other people, black people living there before, no harm done. Would you rather live in a gated community with 80% Nazis with very low chance of harm being done to you, or would you rather live in a black neighborhood where there's a lot of black on black crime, like 80% chance that you'll have some type of violence, you'll either see it or it'll be inflicted on someone or yourself? It's a highly, highly uncomfortable thought experiment. And this gets to the difference between thoughts and actions. Someone can believe that whites are supreme, yet do you no harm. And one neighborhood is, well, no, whites are not supreme, but your neighbors will do you harm. Where would you rather live? Oh, Doug, that's a stupid thought experiment. Anyhow, what he said reminded me of that.
Like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's only 20%. Well, you wouldn't, right? Like you would make the obvious smart decision to go where, in all likelihood, you would be treated better. In all likelihood,
but is being a neo-Nazi equivalent to a black person saying it's not okay to be white?
No.
Okay.
No. The larger point is, can you, as an individual, maximizing your own life, can you make decisions, or does it make sense to make decisions about going where you will probably be liked the most, even if you don't know?
See, now, to be honest, I'm really confused about Scott Adams. I'm confused. Is it hyperbolic when he said white people stay away from black people? Like, he clarified, on an individual case by case basis, of course, you can hang out with someone your black friend or whatever, but he's saying, I think he's being serious here. I think he's saying that if you're a black person, it's in your best interest not to go in the neighborhood with 8% or 20% neo-Nazis living in there. It's in your best interest not to live with them. And he's saying that if you are a white, male, cis, heterosexual, and heaven forbid, a conservative, and you're moving in a neighborhood with a bunch of woke people of color who, let's say the poll is correct, that 20 to 50% don't like you, in fact, might even hate you, can you blame the white person for not moving in? I think that's what he's saying.
Right. So that's the only part that's equivalent. I'm not saying anything's equivalent to a neo-Nazi.
Yeah. But I think the bigger issue here is how large your voice is. Okay. And two groups of people have been particularly enraged, and we're going to exclude white liberals from this. Black Americans, and maybe the diasporas and the rest of the diaspora, maybe. And this neo-Nazi white nationalist crowd. You're their new hero. You're the new hero of white nationalists.
I know. Let me say, I disavow them completely for agreeing with me for all the wrong reasons. but I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the support. But yeah, I disavow them completely. They're just agreeing with me.
So he's not like Trump, guys. He's disavowing the white nationalists. He gets some props for that, right?
Wrong reasons, but what can I do about that?
Yeah, I've been hit with the 13 and 50 for the past 48 hours. 13 and 50.
Wait, a 13?
Well,
what's that?
This is a white nationalist trope where they say black people are 13% of the population and they commit 50% of the violent crimes in America, right? So the whole 13.
No, not violent crimes. It's 50% of the murders, which, of course, is a violent crime.
50 trope.
I find it interesting that people automatically assume that's a racist thing to say, even though it's true, points to a problem that needs fixing. Like, this is the problem when you can't even state the facts without being called a racist. Right? Like, it's not good that black people in America make up 50% of the murders. They're the perpetrators 50%. That's not a good thing, right? It makes all black people look bad. It's bad. It's a problem that needs fixing, but you can't say it. That's a problem if you can't say it even without being called a racist. I really do think we should make the month of March call a woke liberal a racist month.
Which is, we don't have to get into how bizarre or inaccurate that stat is.
Well, but let's be more provocative. Let me ask you the question. When black Americans become wealthy, they usually move away from high crime areas, don't they?
From high crime areas, yes.
Yeah. And there is, unfortunately, because of systemic racism, those high crime areas are concentrated often in black areas.
Look at him smile.
For no fault of the black people, because systemic racism has brought us to this point. So would it be reasonable for a successful black person to say, you know what, the best thing I could do is go to a low crime neighborhood, and unfortunately for me, a lot of white people there. Would that be reasonable?
Yes, but some nuance, as we talked about in the green room.
Yeah, this guy he's smart. Because he's using the word reasonable. Isn't it reasonable for a black person who's wealthy to go live in a low crime area? That's extremely reasonable. And if there's a higher probability that the low crime area is full of white people, is that still reasonable?
I live in an area predominantly that's got a lot of Indians moving in. So I perceive white people as being lower class. So I want to be near the Indians. So if I see a black man or a white man walking down my block.
I'm supposed to be the provocative one. You're ruining everything. You're totally fucking this up. Don't inject any outrages that I haven't already injected. Like it's hard enough for me to sweep up this debris as it is. You're just making it worse.
I just had to put that out there. But I get.
All right, well, that's out there now.
But I get what you're saying.
I would live with the Indians, just the East Indians, just for the curry.
But the white nationalists, I have to come back to this.
Oh, yeah, Bro Joe. Don Lemon from 10 years ago, words that he could never say today. I made a clip of that, right? Or did I just put it in a live stream?
Because the poll itself is divisive. The media has been divisive. I'm sure you've seen the media divide people by race. This poll was designed to trigger the type of response you had. And I'm sure you knew that when you saw the poll.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Right?
I mean, that's the only reason it's interesting.
Correct. Exactly. And I think, they knew that when they started that poll. They said, we're going to divide America with this poll. So I think if anybody needs to be...
Hold on. That you're mind reading there.
Okay.
I'm not sure they said we're going to divide America. I think they thought it was an important question, which I do too. Now, if you take the provocation away, is this not an important question? And isn't it a fair? And by the way, nobody disagreed with my proposition. Nobody's disagreed with it. Everybody's mad because I'm not allowed to say it.
This brings back memories. People are mad because you're not allowed to say it, but nobody disagrees with it.
And let me tell you the most interesting thing. The worst responses I got were from white people signaling. Yeah, I call them the dopamine gooners. It's like they're just tweeting at me, you're racist, over and over again, and they're just enjoying themselves in some weird way. It doesn't feel like it's about me.
It's interesting. There's a large percentage of the population who just love being angry. Like I sometimes want to ask people, would you rather be happy, content, peaceful, or would you rather be high heart rate, high blood pressure, and angry? And I think there's some people on this planet who prefer to be high blood pressure, high heart rate, and angry rather than just calm, chill, and relaxed. I don't get it.
I'm just the headlines they can goon to. But the weirdest thing was how black men responded to this. White men went immediately to racist, Nazi, and you couldn't talk them off that ledge. The black men pretty much came in with something kind of similar to your first reaction, which is...
Yeah, so Charles B., he's talking about you right now. You're the white liberal man who's just racist, Nazi.
There's something we don't know about this. Like they were smelling this doesn't smell right. Like there's something about this. There's some context missing. And so mostly the response I got from black men was, I'm interested in this topic. Actually interested in the topic.
Okay.
And is that bad?
No. I think black men are very intelligent. And they, tend not to fall for many of these media hoaxes. But why would the white liberals? Why are the white liberals, these whites? Why are they doing that? Well, why would
dopamine signaling? Yeah, in the white community, you have to get in first because you don't want to be somebody said that the last person applauding Stalin. You don't want to be the last one in. It's like you don't want to next week wake up and say, you know what, I'm starting to think
I don't get this. I'm missing the virtue signaling gene because I kind of like it when I make everybody mad at me, as I've shown, as I've demonstrated. A lot of atheists don't like me. A lot of liberals definitely don't like me, or some liberals don't like me. I'll say things that will bother even people in my own in-group. So I'm missing that type of signaling gene. But there's so many people on this planet who just really need to be loved. I mean, you got to stop that. Stop wanting to be loved so much. Like, your spouse can love you, your kids can love you, your parents, whatever. But who cares who loves you on Twitter? Who cares who loves you on any social media? Oh, this person denounced this right away. I love you. Got to be a little more dead inside, people. Don't desire the love of strangers.
The whole George Floyd thing was terrible. Like, you don't want to be that guy. You want to be on it like when it's fresh. The longer you wait, the more racist you look. You got to get on it.
I get you. But you asked the question, do I think that the question, is it okay to be white, is important? And in order to ask that question, that question is a relative question. You have to give it some contrast. Important compared to what? I would say no. That question is not important.
Well, I think the form of the question, I agree with you, is not the right question. The proper form of the question would be, is there a, let's say, a pushback? My phone is going crazy, you can imagine.
Look at his smile. He's genuinely happy for a guy who's just been canceled. This was 2 days ago, this video.
Is there any pushback from teaching society that white people are the primary drivers of your pain? You're meaning the Black community. And I would say that you should be aware of both the benefits of what you're doing. That's why you're doing it. But you should also know what the cost is. And part of the cost is how people feel about stuff, their lived reality, right? So the lived reality of white people, and I'm not allowed to say this, so I'll be canceled tomorrow, is that it feels like the systems, the government, corporations, the media, are slowly creating this demonization narrative about white people, and we're starting to feel it. Like before, it was just silly stuff.
Yeah.
Woke people talking, but now you feel it.
Before it was just silly stuff, woke people talking. When a woke person opens his mouth, silliness abounds.
Mm-hmm. And if you feel it and it makes you uncomfortable, you should leave. You should get away from it if you can. Now again, don't discriminate against individuals. Don't violate the Constitution. Don't break the law.
But, and this is not my opinion, but this is what some people have said, and I think this is maybe an MLK quote where if you watch other people suffer, your turn is coming next, something to that effect. And I think that especially for white conservatives and Republicans, they like to ignore the problems of race. They like to act like they don't exist. They don't want to help generally.
You know what? I can tell, this is an aside, but I can tell he's having the exact same mic problems as I sometimes do. Like, I'm not having it right now because I don't have my Whereby open, but he has Windows 10 or Windows 11 and his mic volume is slowly falling and he constantly has to bring it back up. I've noticed it a couple times now. Bill Gates is of the devil.
They want to play the I don't see color game.
I would put a nuance on that, but finish your point.
Okay. And then the liberals are different, where they're like, oh, I'll play this game, but I'm going to play this game because I need to use the Black people to push my socialist communist agenda, whatever. So we become pawns in a game. And now we're just...
You liberals are using Black people to push your socialist agendas. Using Black people and maybe climate change?
A hockey puck on the white man's ice. So when I look at the white folks now and they're saying, oh my God, I'm a victim, I go, well, when Black folks were complaining about being a victim, everybody said, oh, stop being a victim. You have a victim mentality. And now they're like, oh, but we're victims of these violent crimes. There's videos of Black kids beating up white kids. And I'm like, well, you didn't care when Black folks was getting beat up. You didn't say anything then. So why should Black America care now?
Well, you always have the problem of who you is.
Yeah, see, I cared about that. And I would say a lot of white police officers help prevent at least some of that, yes. Now, some white police officers might have caused that as well. And those are bad police officers. But I think the vast majority of white people would agree with that they were bad police officers, and that the vast majority of Black people, I think, would appreciate white police officers coming into their neighborhoods and preventing crime against them, right?
Like that, you didn't care then.
Yeah,
there were plenty of conservatives who certainly cared.
Oh yeah,
Black people were being beaten by police.
Yeah,
and here's the nuance I put on the conservatives. I think you said not caring about race or something worse to that effect. I spend a lot of time in that community. I identify with the left, but most of my time in my audience is on the right. My take is that they're systems over goals people, meaning that they want a system that's going to work. And as soon as you start making exceptions, like, okay, everybody works on merit, except right now. That might be good once. There's plenty of good reasons to make exceptions, but you have to be real careful about what exceptions you make and when.
Okay.
So conservatives tend to be guardians of systems, like keep my constitution the same, keep my religion, my family. And so they like systems. Right. So I think you're mostly seeing people say it does look like it's bad in many ways to be Black in America. I think every conservative would agree with that.
Okay.
But they would also say that can't be everybody's problem all the time.
Right.
The system requires that.
Yeah, I would say it's really bad to be Black and poor in America, and somewhat bad to be poor in America and white. Like if you're Black and rich in America, multi-million dollar mansions. How bad can it be? So the real issue is probably the amount of money you have, primarily, and then the second is how people perceive you through your skin color. Oh, let me add this, and how good looking you are. If you're ugly, black, and poor, you will be discriminated against in America. But if you're black, great looking, like beautiful, handsome, and rich, I mean, you have it better than any other black person in the world, probably. What would you rather be, rich or good looking?
You figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I said that I'm surprised it wasn't more controversial is that everybody who's ever succeeded, forget about race or anything, everybody who's ever succeeded did it the same way. Yeah, there's like 5 things you got to get right, right? Stay out of jail, stay off of drugs and alcohol, don't have a family before you can afford it, and don't be a single parent, stay together if you can. Focus on learning, either a school or vocation, get a talent stack together.
He's giving the secrets, which are not secrets really, to success. I mean, I really think no matter what skin color you are, if you follow these steps, the chances of you being successful in the United States of America go through the roof.
Be a single parent. 5 things you got to get right, right? Stay out of jail.
Stay out of jail.
Stay off of drugs and alcohol.
No drugs.
Don't have a family before you can afford it.
Afford your kids.
Don't be a single parent. Stay together if you can. Focus on learning.
Education.
Either a school or vocation. Get a talent stack together.
Which includes homeschooling.
The skills that work well and make you unique.
Which includes trades, internships. Doesn't have to be anything fancy.
And then character, right? Show up on time, tell the truth.
Show up on time? That's a white supremacist thing. I mean, how can we expect people to show up on time?
That stuff. Now, everybody who's ever tried that has found that it worked. So conservatives say, all right.
He's nodding. Yeah, I mean, you can still fail and do all those things, yes. But your chances of success, especially in the United States, since I don't know if you guys know this, but the United States is a pretty good country to live in. If you do those 5 things, you're going to break systemic poverty, the cyclical poverty. You're going to be able to get a job, save money, have some cash, be less dependent on the government, be less dependent on other people. And it boggles my mind that some people hear these 5 steps to success and think, oh, easy for you to say. Or like how, I mean, don't stick your junk in another person's junk and have kids. I mean, that's the most important one. Before you're ready and have money and have a job and have a career and have a spouse. 2 people who can take care of kids. Like there's no systemic racism or a gun pointed at your head to avoid that. That's your decision. If there's any example of personal responsibility on the planet, it's this very simple idea that you can have sex, but it doesn't have to be intercourse, right?
There's no secret to the formula. The only thing that doesn't work is that young Black people cannot get a good education because of systemic racism.
They won't admit that, though.
What's that?
But that's the part they won't accept.
They do accept that the teachers' unions are ruining education.
Yes.
And the teachers' unions are...
Really? I got to check that out. There must be a poll on that.
Systemic racism problem.
Yes, but you'll say that, but they won't. They won't acknowledge that.
Oh, they agree with me when I say it.
When you say systemic racism or teachers' union?
Both. When I say the teachers' unions are the best example, the strongest one, of systemic racism. Because it's a very identifiable...
Yes, they will agree in that context, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, see, the thing that people don't realize is how close the Black community and the conservative community are. It's like they're on the other side of a paper wall.
Yes.
Like Blacks are almost natural conservatives.
Yes.
Now, I can only say that because you're here, right? So you can agree with me.
It's true. It's true.
If I said that out of context, people would be like, "Well, that's crazy."
Yeah.
But to me, it looks like there are a lot of natural conservatives who can't bring themselves to buy the whole conservative package. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. You just buy the part that everybody wants: better education.
Yeah. I mean, just to support what you said, right? At the very
Oh man, a lot of left-leaning liberals are going to hate that. Absolutely hate it if it's true that blacks are more aligned with conservatives than them. But why do 88% of African Americans or black people in America vote Democrat then? Answer me that.
basic level, what's important to black people? God, money, and guns. That's one thing that
Sounds
black
like
folks and white conservatives got in common. They love them things. So that supports your argument. And ain't a black person that could disagree with that. They know we love guns. They know we love money. And they know we love God. We're one of the most church-going people ever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you like free markets, I'll bet. I'll bet you like unfettered commerce with nothing getting in your way.
We are definitely capitalists.
How do you feel about low taxes?
We definitely want low taxes.
Yeah,
no taxes.
There's certainly things where there's going to be a disagreement.
He said earlier he wants no taxes. I mean, this guy, you can't get more conservative.
But I mean, you're standing on opposite sides of a paper wall. They're so close.
So help me through this, right? I understand and you understand that you can phrase things in certain ways to bring conservatives to your side. For example, with the reparations conversation, I looked at it very briefly, took about 10 minutes, and I said, what if we frame reparations as Democrats must pay? Right? All of us.
Oh, that's brilliant. Look at that smile on Scott Adams' face. Yes, reparations for all black people with slavery heritage, but only paid by registered Democrats. Now, are you registered Democrats going to say yes? Okay, we'll take our hit because we love black people? Or are you going to say, no, it's not fair, they have to pay too? I mean, Bill Gates is a Democrat, right? He could pay a big chunk right there. Jeff Bezos, he's a Democrat, right? Warren Buffett, I don't think is. Elon Musk is, I don't know what he is. He's probably right down the middle. How many Democrats here are willing to pay reparations? Write the first check. Get your checkbooks out. Do you guys still have checkbooks?
All of a sudden, the conservatives was like, yeah, reparations, right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, how come nobody else thought about that, right?
I love that.
But I think the issue that people have...
Yeah, one could also say the same thing with immigration from the South. What if every single immigrant from Mexico, from South America, who enters this country across the Rio Grande or through out by El Paso, what if it's guaranteed that every single one of them will vote Republican? I wonder if Democrats would be more for border security.
Why do we got to go through these extra steps of thinking just to prove that there's some systemic racist problems for black people? Why can't we just get Republicans and white conservatives to say there's systemic racism in America without the context?
Oh, yeah. Here's the trap there. If you say there is systemic racism, and then let's say the Republicans agreed on that premise. Now, I agree with it, but I'm not a politician. If they agree with it, then people can start packing things under that label. Republicans you can deal with on an issue basis. So, for example, Republicans are not going to say, let's fund Black Lives Matter.
Right.
But Black Lives Matter wanted more body cams on police. Conservatives have no issue with that whatsoever. Would probably help you fund it.
See, that's what I like about Scott Adams. He gave a very practical example of where people who disagree on so many things can come to an agreement and get things done. If Black Lives Matter really wanted more body cams, and if conservatives want body cams, well, and I think that's already been done, right? I think almost every single police officer in a major city has a body cam now.
So if you took it down to, like, tell me specifically what you want to do, it ends up being the same stuff. If you said school, We disagree. All right. Do you agree with more choice in school? Conservatives, yes. Black, yes. It's easy.
Yeah.
Democrats, no. We all need to suffer equally.
Yeah. And naturally that, I mean, I look at everybody because everybody operates off of self-interest. And I think if we understand everybody's self-interest and everybody's worries and concerns, because what I saw with the reparations conversation was the major pushback was, I don't want to have to pay it. That's what white people were saying. Why should I have to pay? And then that's why I said, well, you guys said it's the Democrats' fault. So, but my issue is, which makes them seem racist, is why didn't you guys think of that? Why didn't white conservatives and Republicans think to frame reparations and go, hey, black folks, you want reparations? How about we frame this as Dems must pay? It seems like nobody, and it took me all but 10 minutes as I just entered the conversation. Why couldn't they?
But do you think that's a serious proposal that the Democrats would agree with?
No.
I think they would say, you Republicans have all the money. You got to pay.
But the Democrats are in charge of the cities.
I just heard, who was it? Keith Olbermann from MSNBC. He said the opposite. It's the Democrats that have all the money. The blue states have all the money. That's what he said. GDP highest in blue states. So if the Democratic states have all the money, then they should pay the reparations. And the red states are exempt because they're the poor states. And who wants blood money anyhow? They're all the racists. I mean,
Democratic policies are the same policies that have crippled the black community. Sonny Johnson talks about this. They are the party of the poor, right? She says Democrats are the party of the poor, and they can't be the party of the poor if there is no poor. So it's the Democratic policies that have crippled the black community. It is the KKK that was born from the Democratic Party. It is the Democratic Party that pushes Planned Parenthood on black people. And Planned Parenthood comes from Margaret Sanger, a known eugenist. Millions, the biggest thing killing black babies right now is Planned Parenthood. And that's what Democrats, but they're literally pushing black death. So if we want to frame this, if Republicans, for example, we're talking about winning the black vote or bringing black people to your side, it's not that hard if you just sit down and think about it for a second and frame it as Dems must pay, and then force the Democrats into that debate. Imagine if you said that on the debate stage.
That's interesting. Yes.
The whole country would explode. It'd be like,
that would be.
Snake Oil, in a minute, asks a great question. What if more choice in schools just means severely underfunding public schools? Well, then parents need to take responsibility. If you live in a neighborhood where you don't have a good school or no school, how can I say this gently? Don't have kids? But you can't expect that, right, Doug? I mean, you can't expect people not to have sex. Yeah, not intercourse. You can expect. See, this guy agrees with me. There's more ways to have sex than just intercourse. This is why I'm for Planned Parenthood. You got to plan your parenthood. And it's already happening, like teenage pregnancy, unwed mothers, all those rates are going down. So I'm optimistic for the future. But if you think about it, if everybody planned their parenthood, one could make the argument there'd be no need for public schools. Like if everybody could afford their own children, give them the options, the best options for education. If everyone could do that, would we need public schools? One could say yes because of economies of scale or something like that, but technically no. Technically, public schools are for people who can't afford their own children.
But here's my macro comment on that.
okay.
Every time you're in the frame of Democrats and Republicans, you can expect that whatever you do in that frame isn't going to work, other than the election.
Right.
And maybe that didn't work. Who knows? Yeah. So that's why I say, if you can take it down to the what do you want to do phase, like do you want body cams or not, then nobody even knows if that's a Republican or a Democrat.
Okay, we need to wrap this up, but I think the last one was the most important. National story. He reiterates here why he did what he did, why he said what he said.
I did think it would be, potentially a reality that I live in. So to answer your question, I knew it would be super provocative in every way that it could be provocative. You're mentioning one way, And I didn't, discount it or think about it hard. It just wasn't a big variable in my thinking. I did think it would be, potentially a national story. Now, look what happened though. Can you tell your viewer count? Do you know your viewer count?
We hit 3,000 at one point.
All right. So, and then it'll be a lot more later. People will be watching. So what will be the outcome? The outcome will be a whole bunch of people are going to hear that conservatives agree that Black people and conservatives could fight the hardest problem, which is education. And there's no conflict there. You can definitely find a middle ground there. Now, was that something that everybody knew before? Because the bubbles between the Black, let's say, news bubble and social media bubble is really distinct. I mean, those bubbles are like hard bubbles. And I've been saying forever, like, I've got some ideas that would work for Republicans as well as Black people. And I feel like I'm just throwing them into the nothing. But so I decided to shake the box. So here's the answer to your original question. Why the fuck did I do this? Because the box was broken and somebody needed to shake it. And we need to be able to actually break through the bubble and actually have the conversation. And if what that causes is me to get canceled, I had a good run. If the proposition is you get to continue doing your cartoon or you get free speech in a useful way, like I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was useful. I'll take free speech. Like that's an easy one. Yeah, I'll quit work tomorrow. But it's not really.
And of course, it's easy for him to say that. Ubersheiser looked it up. His net worth is 75 million. I think I'd quit doing doodling for 75 million. I mean, he's probably tired of drawing Dilbert.
Negotiable.
First of all, I'd just like to say I really love what I just heard from you. Really love. Real quick.
Okay. How do we recap this? Well, actually, you know what? Before I recap it, let's do the poll again. Most of you came late. So the question is, Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, is he, I forget exactly how I worded it. A brilliant strategist, a stupid racist. You can only pick one, and I got to put lean. Which way do you lean out of these two options? Sure, it's a little bit of both. Sure, it's, maybe something else. But if you had only these two choices, why did I do that? There we go. Vote now. So most of you heard most of what he had to say. Last time we got up, I think, to something like 46 votes before I shut it down. We should get more now. Hopefully. Everybody vote. Don't worry, it's confidential. Nobody will know. Except Myron, my producer. Every time you click yes or no, lean yes, lean no, whatever, he can track your social security numbers and your mother's maiden name and your first dog's pet name. Yeah, no middle ground option. There's a gun to your head and you have to vote. Great stream. I wonder which news outlet will show this. None. Actually, you know what? And I found this. I got lucky. But has anybody heard of anybody having a similar take as, or do you know anybody who's been showing this? Like this guy has 152,000 views, which is pretty good, but it's not like millions of views of the clips that people are seeing. You don't have to vote, though. That's true. It's a free country. But just know that most of the people here, we look at non-voters as cowards. Just saying. Just saying. If you don't vote, you're a coward. I'm just saying that. Just putting it out there. I am actually growing a mustache. Don't worry, I'll put the Just for Men in later, the finishing touches. This Thursday, it's going to look... Once you get the Just for Men in there. Everybody vote. I love this, by the way. I love this because some of you don't know this, because when I gave the first poll, a lot of you flag-waving phonies were gone, but I still had 46 votes. We're at 40 votes now. And I love how people are changing their minds. Maybe it's just because we got a different batch of people in here. That could be another explanation. But when I did this poll initially, same question, it was 69% stupid racist, 31% brilliant. Now it's 57% brilliant strategist, 41% stupid racist. And I hope some of you are not just stubborn in your ways and saying, well, if I said he was a racist and then I get new information, I'm still going to say he's a racist because I'm stubborn. Don't be that way. Take the fact that you got to hear his own words, know why he said what he said, and if you change your mind, change your mind. And if you didn't change your mind, even after hearing why he said that, part of the reason why he did what he did is to have broader conversations to fix real problems. But some of you silly people out there see this white face and $75 million and you say he's a racist. He's probably heterosexual too. I mean, how terrible is that? Arlarian Mobile is proud to say that he's still stupid. Okay. Brilliant is overused already. I think he's brilliant. I think he's the type of guy who can actually fix problems, who can actually reach across the aisle, find areas of commonality, find areas where people value the same thing, and make compromises and solve problems, real problems. Okay. 59-41. Basically same number of votes as the first time. Brilliantly stupid. Well, there's a good compromise. But to me, it was obvious that when he made those comments and you got those clips out in the media, that he knew it would happen. There was no surprises, no shocks to him. He knew it was coming, and he did it for, I think he believes, is the greater good. And that he's using reverse psychology, and he's using the, what do you call it? The backfire effect to his benefit by saying stuff like, white people stay away from black people. When a lot of black people say the exact same thing. But when he says it's racist, when they say it's not. Even though they agree with him, some of black people or people of color. And I played if you came late, I played a clip of that. I think this woman here especially. If you have a white friend, make sure you ask permission if you can bring them to the party. I mean, just crazy. Is Scott a believer in God or atheist? Anyone know? I highly doubt he's a... Well, I don't know. But anybody who draws cartoons for a living must be of the devil. She's not black. Oh, yeah, now you did it. Now you're separating the races. You're saying, oh, person of color, but not black. Okay. If you came late, watch the beginning. You can see that video we're referring to. Yeah, if I was to guess, I think he's an atheist. He looks like an atheist. Like, he has that atheist look, right? Just like me. Godless. Dead inside. Triggering people. Manipulating people. Like, that has to be an atheist. Only atheists would do stuff like this. Funny Franklin. Oh, don't compare him to Archie Bunker. Come on. Most people here don't even know who Archie Bunker is. Yeah, he could be a liberal progressive Christian. One of these fakers. Thanks for hanging out, guys. It was fun. See you next time. Thursday, I'll be on the main channel.